Hello, everyone. I'm Abby Hart, Senior Editor of Landscape Management Magazine. Today, we've got a couple special guests from the National Association of Landscape Professionals, also known as NALP. Today, we're talking to Britt Wood, CEO of NALP, and Andrew Bray, Vice President of Government Relations. Thank you both for Zooming with me.
Thanks for having us, Abby. Good to see you.
Thanks for having us.
Britt, let's start with you. Could you tell me a little bit about where the association is focusing its efforts these days?
Sure. I think really three primary areas, two of which are a big focal point. One we think will be a future focal point for us. As we kind of are evolving in this process, we do have a lot of in-person stuff at associations. And so now we're having to kind of figure out how we're going to deliver value virtually. We put together, obviously, a COVID resource page. It gets continually updated, but we're looking at delivering information in different formats. So we've started a podcast series. We're doing a lot more webinar-wise. And I think what we're trying to do is making sure that we're able to communicate with our members and deliver the information they need, especially as it relates to this crisis. But as we move forward, how will we continue to deliver that value virtually? So that's something we're focused in on. Another thing that more the future looking thing that we're talking about now is as people start to go back to work and we've got these astronomically high unemployment numbers, how can we get the good word out about our industry, and how can we let folks know who could be excellent additions to our industry know that there's job opportunities? So that'll be something we'll be focused in on the future. And certainly last but not least is what Andrew does every day is our government relations. And, he really focuses on three things there: making sure that the industry is considered essential and stays that way. Obviously, all the work that's being done on the stimulus, we're lobbying very heavily to Congress in terms of making sure that we've got some of the opportunities we see for our industry are being represented there as they're making the stimulus packages. And then finally, on the safety side, we want to continue to enforce leading good, safe companies, but also as OSHA issues new guidelines that we're transmitting those over to. So that's a kind of a little bit of a long-winded answer there, but we're focused on a lot of different things.
The lobbying effort is one thing I wanted to talk to you both about. We saw that on Friday, Michigan landscapers were permitted to go back to work. Could you both talk about how that came about?
Yeah, well, Friday was definitely a good day for the industry, as Michigan was kind of that last state that had the most stringent stay-at-home order in the nation. Kind of interestingly, Michigan and its neighbors, when all this started back, in mid-March, as we were talking about at the beginning, were states that kind of had a misunderstanding or misconception about the landscape industry. I think when that first DHS list was released and landscapers weren't specifically included, we believe we were actually included by inference with regards to our role to protecting, both businesses and residences with sanitation and other safety hazards. And then, luckily the CISA list was updated, and it did specifically include landscapers. So that got us out of the woods in a lot of states. But Michigan, interestingly, and I do think there was some politics at play, decided not to reference the updated list. And now there's actually been 3.0, a version that was updated about a week and a half ago, that does, again, include landscapers. So what we did from the beginning is, in Michigan, we wanted to work with our local companies and the Michigan Nursery and Landscape Association. At the beginning, we were directly reaching out to the governor. We were letting MNLA use our grassroots software. I believe we sent something like 8,000 emails in about a 3 or 4 hour period one day. It was pretty impressive stuff. But then, to no avail. It was actually quite discouraging, because it seemed like at times the governor was almost singling out our industry. And so what it really took is just some continued pushing. I know there were people on the ground there that were doing some great work, but from our perspective, we were trying to emphasize to the governor is, hey, look at the places that need our services. We actually had some members send in letters about, hey, Gerald Ford, the airport, they need our services right now. And so we kind of compiled some of these documents to show, hey, not only are we protecting people in their homes, but we're actually servicing other essential industries. And we're doing this outside. We're doing this with safety protocols. And we got some backdoor channels open in the governor's office within the last 10 days And we do think we played a role, but I think it was a full team effort of a lot of things going on. And luckily, last Friday, doors are open for the landscape industry.
Let me just add to that. That's where it's really great to have a national organization and a state organization working together, because Andrew and his team are able to influence congressmen and other folks, maybe not in the governor's office, but have that direct link where the MNLA was able to go in and kind of be the face of this whole thing. So we want to give them as much kudos as possible. They did a great job leading this. But that's where, when state associations and national associations work hand in hand, we can get some real progress done.
Agreed. We try to work with our state associations as much as possible, but oddly, Michigan had not been a state we've had to work with as much from a government relations standpoint. It's generally been a pretty decent state. But me and Amy, the executive director at MNLA, I think have each other on speed dial, and we're talking almost daily, it felt like. But she did a great job leading her association and great members on the ground.
We've seen in the news, talking about going back to work, we've seen in the news that there's talk of non-essential businesses slowly returning to normal. What should landscape companies consider in the coming weeks and months as more people start to return to their offices?
Well, I think the fact that landscapers have been essential, and for the most part, with the exception of Michigan and a few other small locales, for at least a short period of time, we've been working. Now, I think, especially on the commercial side, we've seen some of the customers ask for delays in terms of servicing. And I think as we get back to work, we're going to see almost more of a surge in work. So we want our folks to be ready for that, but we want to make sure that they're still using the safety precautions that have been in place while everyone was gone. And obviously, with clients coming back to work, there's going to be more of an opportunity to interface with individuals while you're on a job site. And again, we just want to continue to emphasize that we want to stay safe and continue doing the really good work that's been done. I think the other thing is this is not a time where you stop paying attention to the CDC and what they're saying, because they're the experts, right? They're the ones really we should be listening to. So we obviously want to make sure that we're getting all the information out to our members, but our members are also thinking about the safety of their workers as well as the customers that they serve.
I will just add, as things are changing, as we've kind of been joking in the office, what happened last week felt like a month ago. But for people that might be viewing this interview in the real near future, this is going to be a pretty busy week on all fronts. And while Britt said, for the most part, we've already been operating, but this week alone, I did a count last week. I think nearly 80% of states that have a stay-at-home order have it ending sometime between the end of this week and the middle of next week, which is like, the April 30th to say May 4th timeline. So there's going to be a lot of information. So I just want to make sure people are always going to the website, NALP website, where we basically are updating all of the activities in the states. We're going to be aggressively monitoring that and providing the updates as much as possible. And while I don't think that's necessarily going to impact our ability to operate, because we have been, I think it's really important that everyone makes sure they understand what is happening in their state and what is changing in a rapidly developing situation.
Yeah, it's just so important for people to, I think when a crisis first occurs, you're very adept at going out and seeking information. But as you get more comfortable, you think, oh, it's not as big a deal. But we really encourage people to continue to use us as a resource. We're going to be very diligent about getting that information out there, but also use the other resources that you've been using in the past, including the CDC and OSHA and others. Yeah, I think a lot's going to happen over the next couple of weeks, as Andrew mentioned. And so it's something that just because the governors start to relax the orders, you still have to be diligent and safe, and make sure you understand everything that's going on, because the last thing you want to do is, put anyone at risk if you can avoid it.
Absolutely. Andrew, could you catch us up on the current status of federal aid packages? How can companies make sure they're getting the help that they need?
Sure. The Senate had previously passed we're not calling it Stimulus 4, but there's been 3 big stimulus packages, and the most recent one was the CARES Act, okay? And that's where the payroll protection program was housed, and that's been one of the most widely used programs I can think in recent memory. And this allows small businesses, those with less than 500 employees, to access payroll protection loans that could be almost entirely 100% forgiven if certain provisions are followed. And that is essentially to keep people on payroll and continue to pay them. that program was so successful that rather than do a whole nother stimulus package, Congress passed a bill that provided additional funding for this program. They provided some other funding to some testing and some first responder aid, but primarily this was almost just like a supplement to the CARES Act to make sure more money was infused into the PPP program. The banks that are providing the PPP loans are beginning to accept applications under this new amount of money. There's about $350 billion that went back into the program. And I did receive news over the weekend that as of, I believe, 10 o'clock this morning, the applications were beginning to process again through the Small Business Administration. And as we're advising any member that's looking into this, don't wait for SBA to 100% approve it. Make sure you're getting that application in, but then find a lender. And you can go onto their website. We've also posted on our website and go and find where your local lenders are. The likelihood is most banks that you're probably operating with can do this. And I'm recommending everybody get in it and talk to a banker because they're going to be able to help you quicker than waiting on some of the bureaucracies. You still probably have to wait for SBA to approve it, but I'm not telling people to drag their feet. I want to make sure they're getting into banks and talking to a banker that might be able to help them. So that's kind of where we are immediately. The talk now is Stimulus 4. And I try to put this into perspective. Back when we had the recession back in 2009, we had to pass a massive stimulus package. That was about $800 billion, okay? To date, we've already spent about $2.6 trillion. So what's happening now in Congress is you're beginning to get some of those kind of fiscally responsible legislators that are becoming increasingly concerned that we're borrowing too much money. But then you have the other side of this. We've never seen anything like this. Money needs to be infused into the economy. And so what I think you're going to see play out over the next couple of weeks is not Stimulus 4 coming next week. You're going to start seeing a very ideological and political debate, which is going to focus on all sorts of things, such as funding states, voting issues, continuing to fund PPP programs and increasing fraud protection, food programs. And then the big one is I think there's going to be a big push for infrastructure as a way to kind of reboost the economy. And in all those things I just said, there's places for the landscape industry to play, especially with regard to infrastructure. There's opportunities there. We want to continue to boost programs like PPP. And we're also looking to make sure we can limit liability for landscape companies in any sort of stimulus package, as that's an important role as this is kind of a new world with how COVID has been transmitted. The way I look at it is when they did this the CARES Act, the massive one, they just had to get us through about 30 to 60 days. Okay, the long-term healing on something like this might not look like another $2.3 trillion package, but I foresee 4, 5, 6 more kind of larger deals going through Congress over the next 6 to 18 months to really fully get us out of this and help us. And in every step of the way, we've got to make sure we're kind of in tune and pushing for things that can help our industry in any of those sort of packages.
Yeah, and I would say Andrew does a really good job of keeping everybody up to date. He puts out a weekly newsletter called The Advocate. And so just, again, feel like reaching out to Andrew is, he's doing a great job of representing the landscape and lawn care businesses' interests here in Washington and will continue to do so. But he'll be spitting information out so people understand exactly what's happening.
So finally, what do you foresee as your next challenge in the coming weeks?
From a member's perspective, especially if you're in the commercial business, we have a feeling as things begin to open back up that those members are going to be busier. Again, we want to continue to emphasize safety and having all the precautions in place. I think one thing that I wanted to mention that's been interesting to me is, and I'm fortunate enough that I'm having conversations with a lot of different industry leaders, and I think it's really been great to see how well people have been adapting. I mean, I think people now are wrestling with the idea of, do I even need an office? I mean, can I have more people virtual? I think people are realizing that there's opportunities there and that they're adapting to it. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this particular episode transforms, the industry as a whole in terms of how they operate and what they do. From the association side, I mean, really for us, the next couple of weeks are continue to provide information in a quick, meaningful manner, so that our members know exactly what's going on. Andrew and his team are a huge part of that. but we're also going to be working on delivering other things that can help continue to grow the business in this time. And how can we help all of the landscape and lawn care companies throughout the country to continue to grow and prosper, even in these challenging times. And then finally, we want to talk a lot more about the industry. And this is a great industry. I mean, I've only been a part of it for 6 months, but I tell you what, we've got fantastic people in here who are doing great work and businesses that are really well run. And so we want to get the word out about how we can better promote this industry to those people who might be looking for jobs and really continue to drive growth. So I think those, from my perspective, are the big things. And I know Andrew's got, obviously things on the government side that I'll let him address.
No, I think that's right, Britt. I will say, going back and echoing something Britt said, something I do think is going to be a problem is we know that even with record unemployment coming ahead, we are still going to encounter labor problems in our industry, and we know that. And how we solve that crisis isn't different than what it was a few weeks ago. Some of the tools we might use might be different, and some of the people we're attracting may be different. But we're going to need to continue to work on that, whether it be through guest worker programs like H-2B, or working with our 4- and 2-year universities, working with high schools, and working with others that may recently have been unemployed. And there's an opportunity to enter our industry and see some of the great stuff and that our industry is doing in attracting those workers. So workforce development is still always going to be a key. But I also stress, as Britt did the safety stuff, we have fought, in some cases like Michigan, tooth and nail, to educate policymakers about the essential nature of our industry. And one of the key things each one of those policymakers wants to ensure is that what we're doing is safe. And I tell everybody, whenever I talk to them, it just takes one bad apple to ruin the bunch. So we're being watched. And I think it's really important, even as things become more normal, that we keep in these staunch and rigid protocols to make sure that we are not, enhancing the transmission of COVID. So that will maintain a top priority. And then really the normalcy of coming back, there's still a lot of things on our plate that we have to do. Everyone forgets all the state legislatures just automatically closed in March, which is the busiest month of the year. So as they reconvene, trust me, the normal stuff that we've been doing about, being able to defend our industry's ability to use products like pesticides and fertilizers, that stuff's going to come back. That's going to be right in our lap again. Working with OSHA on some tree care standards we know are coming down the pipeline, and continue to work with Congress in general on H-2B and other issues are going to be back in the forefront. They just kind of went to the back of our memory for a few weeks, but trust me, they're coming right down, and we got to continue to keep the pressure on with those issues, all while maintaining COVID, which is still priority number one. So it's going to be a busy summer for sure, but we're definitely looking forward to it.
Thank you both for sitting down with us. This has been Britt Wood, CEO of NALP, and Andrew Bray, Vice President of Government Relations, also with NALP. Thank you both for Zooming with me today and for the great work and the hard work you're doing for the industry. Take care and stay safe.
Thank you, Abby.
Thank you so much, Abby.
Thank you.